Hello, and my name is Rob, and welcome to the Uncut Podcast. And I feel like if I jump into the usual sort of spiel about this is what this podcast does and this is who we are, I feel like I'm sort of missing the elephant in the room because I think this is the first one we've done since about October, so November. So I have to apologise before we jump into the subject of today's episode, and just say my bad. Trying to launch two podcasts and do the pre-production for a film is mucho stupido, or other languages. But anyway, for this ramshackle, which I'm assuming it's going to be episode, I have been joined by my two oldest podcasting wives. First up, we have Graham. Hello there.
Hi there.
And Aidan.
Hello.
How are you both doing today?
Okay, yeah. I think we were talking before we went on that I am banking up podcasts before I go away on holiday. So my head is a gallimaufry of films that I cannot always usefully separate out. I mean, I feel like when you're watching films like the ones that we're about to talk about here, you can definitely tell that this is. You remember that this is a particular director, but other than that,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yourself, Aidan?
Yeah, just been just doing what I usually do a lot. Haven't been doing a lot of film watching lately, so it's nice to jump back into this particular director and just go, wow, okay, this is really discombobulating me a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we may as well jump into it. It's Álex de la Iglesias, Spanish director. Did a few bits in Mexico. He's a lot.
Yeah.
I went back to my old letterboxd review of one of the films that we're doing today to try and guide me through it, and I found out that all I'd written was, "It's a lot, and a lot of it is good."
Well, past Graham was very helpful, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the consensus on him, it doesn't seem to really have one. I don't know how he's thought of in Spain, but judging by a letterbox, people seem to think he's, I don't know, something you grow out of, which I guess we'll get into, but it's an odd take. I guess it's just, is maximalism, have I said that right? I'm going with it anyway. Is that frowned upon, really? Do people not like that sort of
maximalist kind of? I can see how, like, if you watched these films as a teenager, you would absolutely fall in love with them. And I can also see how in later life, if you sort of really got into Tarkovsky or something, you might view that as being a bit of a youthful affectation. But I don't think that means they have nothing to offer to anyone older.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, totally.
I mean, I take the sort of Italian perspective, especially in sort of the 60s, 70s period. They didn't really differentiate between high art and high trash.
Yeah.
The same people were kind of making all of the above.
Yeah.
Really, so you can't say I'm too clever for stupid movies. While you're sipping your Pinot Grigio, some wine. I was going to say something there and sound really clever, but I don't know any wine, so I can't do that. Hoisted by my own petard there.
But also, really restating your anti-snob bona fides at the same time. If you'd got that right, you'd have sounded like a hypocrite.
Yes, that is true. The three Álex de la Iglesias movies that we are doing today, I'll go with the English titles because I won't do the shame of trying to do the Spanish language titles. But we have The Day of the Beast, Mutant Action, even though the Spanish version of that is so cool, it's Action Mutante, which just sounds
great. Yeah.
It sounds fantastic.
It's a fun name. And this one, I don't know whether this translates directly from Spanish to English, but it's what they went with for the English version, Witchin' and Bitchin', which is a fun name to say out loud. If I don't know whether it can be really used as a title these days, but it's what he went with, and bless him for it. do you want to do this chronologically?
I mean,
There's a weird part of me that wants to do it reverse chronologically.
I mean, you could do it that way if you really wanted to. I mean, considering how, as Rob said, how maximalist Alex Dilla Glazier's films are. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I can't
see your
really
point.
sort of substantiate that. It just feels right.
Well, we'll go with witching and bitching.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's also the last one I watched as well. So that's the freshest in my head.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Well, plots. Let's try and sum this one up. Some people who are dressed as a silver-painted Jesus and a green-skinned action man take it upon themselves, along with a child in tow, to rob a bank and try and get away with it, essentially. As this is happening, there's like a woman in the street of, I'm assuming it's Madrid. He seems very much tied to Madrid,
Yeah.
to the Iglesias. Is ranting and raving. She'll pop up later, which I think is a nice little callback. But as they're running away from the police and they're running away from one of the characters' ex-wives, who is a little angry, they happen upon this town in the middle of nowhere, in between the very edge of Spain before it passes over into France, where they happen upon a village, which apparently is where all witchcraft began. And, well, let's just say some stuff happens. And
A lot of
leave it there, because it's just one of those movies where it just, you think it's reached the pitch, like a fever pitch, like a very top of where it's going to go, and then it goes further, and then it goes further, and then
further and further. Yeah.
Yeah. So, seeing as though it was the most recent one you watched, Aidan, what are your feelings on this one?
I liked what I saw, and like I said, it's I'm still trying to process it, to be honest. And I'm not just. I think it's down to what you both said earlier about the maximalism of how Delegasia operates in, and how he's combining like these different ideas of like a heist robbery to top end the film, along with somehow weaving it into this coven of witches that are somehow just absolutely just a balmy set of proceedings that honestly they are kind of designed as more. I think the important thing is to see them as more like black comedies than like straight up horror movies.
Definitely.
And I think gotta have that idea going into one of these things, because if not, it's just you're just gonna see there just sat there thinking, what on earth is going on with all these scrambling around?
It's very different, but in the same sort of register of I always forget the name of it. The Jim Jarmusch zombie movie,
The Dead Don't Die.
Oh, Day of the Dead. Oh no, not Day of the Dead. Dead Don't Die. Sorry.
Yeah, people are like, this isn't a zombie movie. This is terrible. It says, yeah, of course it's not a zombie movie. He has no interest in making a zombie movie. This is a dark comedy.
Yes,
like 100%. And yeah, although this kind of like turns the knob up to 11, twists it off, and then it's the same sort of mentality, really. Graham.
Yeah, I think the thing that really sort of fascinates me about Witching and Bitching is that it's basically impossible to tell if it's really sexist or really feminist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree. Yeah.
Like in the drive over, they're just sort of complaining about the women in their lives, and you do have that thought, don't you? Is this really sexist? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think it's sort of, if I had to define its political standpoint, I guess it believes that men and women can reach some reconciliation through utter deranged excess. Like, maybe we'll all come through the other side of that and it'll be okay. But it's got these amazing opening credits, which have like,
yeah. No, I love that.
And I was noting down some of the women featured in it, and it's Margaret Thatcher, Frida Kahlo, Willendorf Venus, Myra Hindley, and Angela Merkel. So already it's you know,
Lenny Riefenstahl is there as well.
who is, sorry?
Lenny Riefenstahl.
Right, I didn't spot her.
He's hitting all the bases then, isn't he?
Exactly, yeah. Try and get a coherent ideology out of that. I found myself thinking a lot with all of the films we're watching about comparison points, because they're kind of hard things to explain. If you can say it's a bit like this, that does become a lot easier. There's bits in this that are very Edgar Wright-ish. You know, the fact that a bank robbery involving living statues is complicated by one of them bringing a kid along, basically mashes together two of the best jokes from Hot Fuzz and Baby Driver.
Yeah. The more you think about it, that opening sequence, yeah, no, I completely get your point, because it is just this random cascade of like characters, because you've got the Jesus, you've got the Green Action Man,
Yeah.
but you've also got a guy dressed as SpongeBob SquarePants. And
Yeah, how
that's
is
the
he
point.
not sued for that?
I mean, in one of the movies, it has the Mission Impossible music. I thought, is this guy just really liberal with sort of copyright? And just does it anywhere. And he seems to, I mean, these aren't what it appears anyway on screen. These don't appear to be low budget movies, because he's doing a lot.
No.
With like big locations and big effects and practical effects and production design. But at the same time, he does ridiculous things where nobody in their right mind would give this guy a lot of money to do this stuff. Like a character dressed as SpongeBob SquarePants is shot brutally by the police and just squibs everywhere. It's
I think he's actually quite big.
I burst out laughing at that.
Yeah. He's quite a big wheel in the Spanish sort of film industry now, you know, on the administrative end. And I love the idea of aspiring filmmakers having their scripts read by the guy who gunned down SpongeBob.
I mean, fair play, I can't say it's ever happened in any other movie before. I mean, maybe, but it's a rarity.
I haven't seen all of the SpongeBob movies. It might be in one of the more recent ones, but yeah, other than that.
There's more in that section as well, isn't there? There's a good few characters, like, is there some Marvel in that sequence as well, if I remember correctly? There's some sort of IP'd characters in there beyond SpongeBob who get squibbed to death.
Yeah, I know the Invisible Man's there as well, which is an impressive costume feat to see. Nonetheless, as soon as but the caveat to that is that as soon as because he's invisible, he runs into a lamppost as he's getting chased
it's a great
along.
gag. Yeah,
it's fantastic as well.
I know, it's kind of like, he fell over. Isn't that funny? To quote the famous Stuart Lee routine, but he kind of is in this case. He has like a very stupid sense of humor, which I think maybe going back to what I was saying earlier about people thinking, I'm too clever for this. I've matured past finding somebody running at a lamppost funny, which no, you have.
I don't know. Yeah. I think sometimes you just need that shot of catharsis, don't you? And I think for that reason, with something like Witchin' and Bitchin', where it's just like all over the map, I kind of like its energy a lot. And I think that's what I kind of miss a lot of the time whenever I watch like a serious art film. Sometimes you just need that shot of silly fun, don't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, that idea of maximalism, I don't really know anybody who does it anymore. It's not a common trait. We are in the age of subtlety. And I don't know.
The success of Hundreds of Beavers gives me some hope that some people will be just writing down all of their craziest ideas and just trying to cram as many gags into movies as possible. Maybe that'll come back round.
I hope so, because it felt like sort of a thing which died out in the 90s.
Yeah.
The 90s had lots of this sort of stuff. At least in sort of the sense of the Hollywood industry had lots of this sort of stuff. There was one this year which I thought was like a very nice return to maximalism. It was good luck, something don't die.
Fun, don't die.
Oh
Yeah, that had a
yeah.
similar sort of anarchy about it, where it just
Yeah.
goes for it. I don't think to the extent that this does, because I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with sort of unpacking what this movie is,
Well,
because
it's the
the
difference
whole
between Hollywood and Spain, isn't it? Right? It's like the difference between
Mm.
a country where people grow up dreaming of being George Lucas and a country where people grow up dreaming of being Pedro Almodovar.
yes, that does change
Yeah,
quite a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because to unpack that second half, well, where do you begin, really? It starts off as this sort of very typical. I don't know how you describe them, but the sort of movies you've seen a lot in the Euro horror era of the
Yeah.
1970s, where they
Mm.
turn up at this very lavish, but in this case, dilapidated castle, and
Mm.
there's a very beautiful young woman and elderly people involved there. But there's also, before that, there's a little village with a cafe where they're watching old ventriloquist movie tapes, and
Oh yeah, they
there's an
are, aren't
eye
they?
in the
Yeah.
there's a man in the toilet. It doesn't.
Oh yes,
It just
there's an
kind of
eye thing.
it just goes straight for it. It's not. I don't know what I mean. I just don't know how.
There's an,
Please help someone.
an eye peering through the toilet bunghole. It's what
Don't
the
say
hell?
bunghole in this context, please. Yeah, it's the longest film of the three we'll be doing, and I think it
Mm,
did sometimes feel
Mm.
like that because it's. I suppose when you watch a film that's about sort of horror and witchcraft and feminism and all of these very resonant themes, you're expecting something these days that's thematically very well organized. Even if it's silly, we have to thematically
mm,
organize our silliness. And this is kind of
Mm.
scattergun, and sometimes that's nice. I think all of the time we
Yeah.
spend hanging out with the bank robbers at the start is like, well, I can see why some people might think this is a bit of a gratuitous amount of time it's taken to get to the fireworks factory. But I like crime movies. I like heist movies. I enjoyed that bit of the movie.
yeah.
And then,
Mm.
as you're expecting it to tighten up, it sprawls more. And sometimes I liked that too, and sometimes it also felt a bit too much.
Bit yeah,
Yeah.
like a bit running thin
Mm.
areas. I
The,
get what you mean. Yeah. No.
the time spent with the bank robbers is a thing I really miss in a lot of movies.
Yeah,
Whether they're sexist or not, that's a point for later, I guess. But it's the sense of it's just hangout. It's just you're
yes,
spending some time with some
Yes.
characters, some people on the wrong side of the law, and just hanging out with them.
yeah,
Um, that's
Mm.
that's rare in modern crime cinema. I think, with the exception, I think there was a few last year that popped up in the Best of the Year episode, if memory serves. But it's genuinely, the criminals in modern crime cinema are very well organized,
yeah.
and
Mm.
to have just these idiots who are just sort of flying by the seat of their pants and converting from being a taxi driver to one of the guys. It's
Mm.
kind of endearing, I feel.
It's sort of the film's tone is obviously completely different, but that aspect of it is quite classic noir, where the purpose of telling a crime story is to tell a story about someone who's wildly out of their depth. You know, if there is
Mm.
one noir novel it reminds me of, it's that mad final chapter of Jim Thompson's The Getaway, which
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's been filmed twice. It was famously filmed by Sam Peckinpah with Steve McQueen and Ali McGraw, but no one's ever adapted the last chapter because Thompson's a writer whose grip on reality is never great at the best of times, in my opinion, just loses it completely. That they end up like escaping to Mexico, but they're massively in debt to a crime boss who strands them in a village full of cannibals, and you just think, what? Where did
What?
this come from? What are you on about?
Oh, why hasn't anybody
Uh,
adapted that? That sounds like great fun.
It's great, but you can sort of see why even Sam Peckinpah looked at it and thought, "That's a bit much." It's
And that's Sam Peckinpah.
Yeah.
That is saying a lot.
Yeah, but just some of the other things that happen. Let's see. It starts off as a chase essentially. It's one of those original things of when they turn up in the house. Who are the people that we're with? Can we trust them? And then when they find the boy in the oven, I mean, that's usually a telltale sign. That,
Yes.
That something's not quite right.
Yeah, it's pretty mild pretty milquetoast as far as where things go. Because it seems to be a gathering of a coven, because some sort of a prophecy it almost turns into an Indiana Jones movie, let's be honest.
It is a bit
Yeah.
Temple of Doom, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
especially in
I
this
get
last
your
third,
point.
yeah. But the end boss is a bit different in this one.
The end boss is
By that point,
straight out of Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, I thought.
Oh yeah.
Brain Dead, or maybe like a final boss in a Resident Evil game. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
what what the hell?
Yeah, it's fun, I guess. But
Yeah. And by that stretch, I'd never consider it boring. I think that's where it got his legs back after running a little bit thin in the middle. But like I said, that weird ogre with like a cap on its head and like chasing the sacrifices around the cave is just like the part where I just went, okay, no, I'm really enjoying this again now. Yeah, this is just this is wild.
it's original.
Yeah.
I'll give it
Yeah. Oh yeah.
some of the characters though in it are odd. I mean, it plays around the sort of the three men, but other characters we eventually do happen upon the guy who lives in the toilet,
Yes.
and he becomes a bigger player. There's one of the younger version of the witches who is sort of a weird are there or aren't they in love sort of relationship going on there.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of hard to unpack really, because it is just kind of they had all of these ideas, they put it in a bag, they shook the bag up, and then they just said, let's just leave it as it is.
You could drive yourself completely mad trying to get a coherent ideology out of this, I think.
I don't think it's sexist though. It has traits of it.
I would agree. Yeah.
I think it's playing with like sexist tropes for laughs. I think it's like a very conscious, ironic riff on old Battle of the Sexes comedies, where in this case the battle turns out to be a literal fight to the death. But yeah, I think it stays on the right side of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when it comes to its female characters, yeah, okay, you have the older witches and you have the younger witches that seduce some of the bank robbers, etc., etc. But you got to remember that obviously, since it's a black comedy, it's playing it for exaggeration as well. So you can't really see some of the sexist attitudes as like a negative thing half the time. You just got to take it with a massive degree of salt. That the Iglesia is just like poking some fun at this kind of ideology.
I'm just curious what it's because that's just it can't be called that in Spanish.
No, I'm just trying to.
Let me see what the Spanish title is.
I'm not going to even take a run at that as a Spanish title.
Because it sounds really bad in English, but it's one of those things where you often see these movies. A classic one being Pan's Labyrinth. I don't know where they got that title from, because in Spanish it's the Labyrinth of the Faun.
Yeah, that's got a common sort of mythological root, isn't it? Pan in Greek mythology is a faun, so I
it's
get
kind
it.
of it's
Makes
readapting and
sense. Yeah.
recontextualizing, but it's not really the same thing.
I don't understand where you can get witching and bitching out of the witches of Zagaramurdi, though.
Yeah,
well, that's
yeah.
a pivot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It PR, I guess, like marketing. Because it did have
Probably.
I do remember it had sort of in the, I guess, early era of what we call the modern internet age. It had a lot of prominent promotion. It
Yes.
kind of went for sort of a meme-ish humour before that really established, which I don't really think is there. It's, although maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's how I read it anyway.
I think all of these films that we're talking about, you can promote through that method where it's like, check out the totally outrageous thing that happens in this movie. But I think it probably also does them all a bit of a disservice.
I mean, that name is just horrible. Witching and bitching.
It's really shit, isn't it? Yeah.
Sounds fun to say, but
I would
doesn't
go and
mean
see
anything.
I would go and see a drag show with this title, but not a movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally high camp as a title.
Yeah.
Really. Not that this isn't high camp, but it's not the same sort.
No.
Where you'd expect that sort of title. So any other thoughts about Witching and Bitching before? God, it's really odd saying that in any sort of context, isn't it? Any other feelings on this one?
I think it's one thing about it that punches above its weight is that the dialogue is really snappy. You see a lot of these films which have outrageous horror comedy high concepts, and they just let the concept carry the weight. You know, a lot of the Anglophone ones are just the concept keeps happening, and then someone goes, "I can't believe that happened. That's really weird." And it's like, yeah, we can see.
I know.
But
I think the example for me, sorry to interrupt, but I think the example for me is with the kid in the back of the car after the heist, and then they're just speeding through Madrid, like passing through cars, like obviously they're having an argument, and then the kid in the back seat just goes, "It's just like GTA San Andreas," and then just cuts. Yeah, it's that specific GTA game as well, and no, I can totally get what your point because it is pulling its punches with how to write dialogue that's quite snappy and memorable before quickly cutting to the next scene. I think Iglesia does have a fine talent for doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one that tickled me the most was, how long does it take to burn someone? I don't know. It's the first time I've been burned.
Yeah, it's going back to the point of finding movies that this is alike, and so many things will run through me. The Edgar Wright thing is right. Also, I'd say there's some Tim Burton in there. And weirdly, it made me think of sort of the more absurd style of sort of Czech and Polish sort of sci-fi satire.
I can see that. Yeah.
There's Pete. I don't know how to say it, so I'm just going to say it anyway. Peter Sulskin. He did a movie. I can't remember which one it was. Was it War of the? It wasn't War of the Worlds. It's one where basically somebody's shot off onto another planet, and he's heralded as a hero.
Oh, is that Gaga Glory to the Heroes?
Yeah, Gaga Glory to the Heroes.
Yeah.
Which is a wild movie.
It's the one. I can totally agree because I've seen that film as well, like last year, and it was just that's a lot of film as well.
The energy of it. It just made me think of the energy of that sort of, because people think Polish movies and they think, oh, it's all dour and serious miserableism, but no, they knew how to party.
I think we'll get on to some more Eastern European comparisons later on, but I wouldn't have said it about this one, but now you've said it, I see it.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, that one movie in particular, because that whole thing is they're trying to make him sin so they can sacrifice him for a good TV show. There's like a big satirical bent to that one.
Yeah, it's a really quite smart film. The more I think about Gaga Glory to the Heroes, because it has like a lot of commentary to chew on in regards to the collapse of the communist state in Poland as well. So there's a lot of bang for buck, I reckon. I think did Radiance put that out? I can't remember.
Yes,
it was a few years ago. Yeah. So it's definitely worth digging out.
So moving on to the one which I've seen most recently, which is The Day of the Beast. Which, honestly, if this isn't in your Christmas cycle, I mean, come on. Again, trying to condense this one into a plot, I'll do my best. But essentially, a priest decides upon himself, not just a priest, a theologist who studies at university, has just found out that he's discovered a date in some texts that signal the birth of the Antichrist, and to sort of find his way to that end game, he's decided that he needs to sin as much as humanly possible. And on his pathway, he happens across kind of a very sweet spirited but bit of an airhead of a metal record shop guy,
Yeah.
and a TV. I don't know how you describe him. TV sort of.
Like a cultist in a way, yeah. Professor Kavan.
Yeah, TV occultist. We'll just go with that because it's the easiest hat for him to wear, honestly.
It's not a TV niche that I was familiar with. Or hey, maybe in Spain.
Yeah, glory to Spain if they've got TV like this going on.
Yeah.
And again, it's just one of these things where it starts off fairly simple, even if you class a priest getting smushed by a giant cross simple, and it just goes on from there. But weirdly, it's also sort of the smallest and the less mad of the three, which I think is saying a whole heck of a bunch.
Yes. I
But
think
Yes, yeah.
Graham, thoughts on this one?
Well, I think you've touched on part of why I like here is that it has this very solid comedic logic. You know, that it takes as many outrageous plot turns as the other films, but everything is based on this very sort of well worked out kind of absurd logic and escalation. The whole idea of a priest having to commit sins in order to prevent the birth of the Antichrist is something that they actually put quite a lot of thought into how that would work theologically. It reminded me of there's a little novella called Mr. Pie by Mervyn Peake, the author of Gormenghast, and it's this sort of quite odd little comedy about a missionary who finds that he's so pious, so irritatingly pious to the people he meets, that he starts to grow angel wings, and he tries to like row it back by being as sinful as possible so that they'll shrink back. But he's just too nice a guy for it to work. And it's quite a sort of theologically interesting and philosophically interesting thing to think about whether you can be evil deliberately. You know, does true evil come from just being thoughtlessly cruel, or can you actually be a good person who flips a switch and does evil without evil in their heart? It's a weird and interesting concept, and I think it's the fact that Della Iglesia has obviously thought quite a lot about this, even if the sort of the movie he makes about it could not be further from anything that strikes you as religiously serious. It's not silence, I think, but
Yeah.
but it's got some theology to it.
Yeah, that's the sort of the nub of him as a character. From what the movies I've seen anyway, he seems really intelligent. He just makes super stupid movies.
100%, yeah, and I love that.
But he knows how to do them well, doesn't it? Because with the other two films, Witch and Bitchin' and Mutant Action, you have this large cast of like interlocking characters sprawled against like different genres, basically. Whereas with this, you have three distinct, memorable characters: Father Angel, Professor Kavan, and the heavy metal guy. I've forgotten his name, but and they have just their own unique little identities and physicalities and personalities with them that honestly it just is a riot to see these three just kind of bicker, try and stop the Antichrist, wacky sometimes like in the case of Father Angel, just whack him like someone over the head with like an iron or something like that. It's just like, well, I mean, I can't really complain about this because like I say, these are just really memorable, quite fun characters to play around with when you're dealing with a concept as quite wild as this to stop the Antichrist, basically. But no, I'm completely with you, because it is just such. Again, it's not over sprawled or overspilled or anything like that. It's just it is contained. De la Grazia knows how to contain the madness with this one, and I completely agree, wholeheartedly.
And is there a sort of a underlying subtext in this of a commentary and nature of what Madrid is in 1995?
Well, this is the thing, because
Because
I
just
noted
on
this
that,
down.
because on
Yeah.
that, when I first watched this, what I really was reminded of was the Apocalypse trilogy by John Carpenter, of all things.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
it has that sort of the end of the world happening in a really mundane way in the inner city.
Yeah.
And it's not sold in sort of like the big brash colours. It's just, it's kind of synonymous with social degradation and social decay. I mean, maybe it's there. Maybe I'm just looking for it. But what did you guys think?
I think I noticed this down in my Letterboxd review because I reviewed it last year in terms of Christmas, funny enough. But there are scenes in here where either one of the characters see like just random killings happening across Madrid from these different gangs, basically. And the reading that I got from that was in the wake of, I think it was like Franco's death or something like that. There was like a boiling up of like hard right gangs like going around basically committing these atrocious crimes. Basically, I think that's De la Glazier's like obviously shining light on them and being pretty critical and brutal about what they had done. Basically, there's the scene where I think Father Angel sees the homeless guy get set alight, basically, and get beaten mercilessly with baseball bats, basically, towards the very end. And I think that is just very telling. Where we say like, of course, he makes like really dumb like films, De la Glazia, but there is like a really hardline commentary in this one that I really did quite appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think the other sort of thing in it that's of its time in a very enjoyable way, part of me wondered whether this is De la Iglesia's response to the sort of post-Batman superhero movies. Because Batista Lena contributes this great sort of industrial-edged score that does have that kind of sweeping Danny Elfman quality. And it sort of, it has that kind of noirish feel that a lot of the superhero movies around that time had, like the original version of The Crow or The Shadow or stuff like that. And I think that's, if conscious, that is also quite a funny thing, because what's more of a superhero story than the New Testament, right?
Yeah. The more you think about it, definitely agree, because you look at some of the set pieces here, and like when the three of the heroes are dangling like above the Schweppes billboard sign, basically.
I mean, who signed that for Schweppes, really? I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, it's that's product placement for you. But no, it's it's you can tell like De la Grazia is like obviously putting his foot in like the corner of its time, really. Just these different films, like The Rocketeer, like the Tim Burton Batman films, that these set pieces can't really come from any other decade, really.
Yeah.
And it's wholly memorable for that reason.
I think I also love the bad back projection. I don't know if it's deliberate, but the bad back projection at the end really makes it. It looks so cool.
Oh yeah, does look cool.
Has a real Harryhausen vibe about it.
Yeah.
When he was charged with doing more modern stuff rather than just Greek mythology.
Yeah.
So there's just much to unpack. Picking my fight, I think it's kind of fearless as a genre move as well to talk about religion, because I don't know where. I mean, it's a very faith-driven country, Spain, sort of do this movie in that era in particular, and to sort of play into the whole idea of, which I don't think it was then. I think it was more the 80s and 70s of the court cases against metal music, where if you play it backwards, it's this demonic message.
Yeah.
which is ridiculous because music and words and sounds don't work like that. But it was a thing. I think it was
Yeah.
against Judas Priest, if I remember correctly.
I think the guy from Judas Priest had the most fantastic defense against that, where he said, if we could control the minds of our audience by putting backwards messages on records, we would put a backwards message on saying, buy more records.
Yeah. But it does invoke that, so it's very playful with what it's doing, but also quite daring because Spain is very, very Christian society, and to pervert the church like this, it's daring. Maybe speaks of his position in the Spanish film industry, where he felt he had the freedom to be able to do this sort of thing, because even in Hollywood, I don't know anybody who would have had the nuts to really even dare to try this sort of thing at that point in time, anyway.
I don't think they would do it in the 90s, because in the 90s in America, the religious right were very much in the ascendant, I think that in Spain, you're right that it is a very Catholic country, but part of that traditionalist Catholicism had been sort of discredited by its association with the Franco years. So it was quite an acceptable thing in like the arts to be against that. I think the treatment of Jose Maria, the metal fan, is really interesting, because it's like he's a very likable guy, and the actor playing him, Santiago Segura, is very charming, but there's almost a joke in it, that's saying this is music that's synonymous with evil, and this is music that people think is evil, and now we're going to put a fan of this music up against actual evil. I think in that context, his sort of metalhead affectations, they're sort of useful, but he's also very out of his depth, which I think is a funny way to treat that moral panic. He is being comprehensively out-eviled by a priest here.
Yes, that is very shrewd work there. And he is right that hell is a great name for a club.
Yes.
Just gonna vouch from there. Other parts of it, I don't know, it's just part of another director that really brings that leaps out really for me, is especially with this one. There's two. One's Japanese, one's Dutch. Nobody talks about the Dutch one, but Dick Maas.
Yes.
I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but he did all sorts of things, including The Lift, and I think Holland's only attempt at a Jello, whose name's completely escaping me. It was in a canal with a glove killer. Its name
Of course
is
it's
just
in a
gone.
canal. Where else would a Dutch Jallo take place?
And Takashi Miike.
Yeah.
This made me think of, because it's formally and flexibly fluid, but it's also kind of punk rock as well. Has that mentality about it, and those two directors just didn't really care what people thought of them. They had that sort of what people would call tonally a mess
Yeah.
about them. But I don't know. Maybe I've been corrupted by watching so many Korean and Japanese movies where form is kind of a suggestion rather than a strict thing to follow. But
Yeah.
I feel like in this case, the way he plays with sort of tone is really satisfying. And like very few directors of that time, just sort of really in a sort of a big sort of we're commanding big budgets anyway for their respective countries, sort of Dick Maas and Takashi Miike.
I think the comparison point I came up with was like one that I stumbled on by accident when you were talking earlier. You mentioned that this was treats its city in a way that reminded you of John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy, particularly Prince of Darkness, which has a really sort of grimy urban backdrop that becomes central to the more high-flown bits of it. But when you said Apocalypse Trilogy, like I forgot that that's what those Carpenter films were called, and I thought, oh, is he going to talk about Greg Arakai? And in a strange way, yeah, it works. If you want something that is exactly in the middle of John Carpenter's Apocalypse Trilogy and Greg Arakai's Apocalypse Trilogy, this actually probably does it.
I mean, I thought it was pronounced Greg Araki, but so thank you for correcting that.
That's what I thought his name was pronounced as.
I might be wrong. I can't remember where I've got that pronunciation from, but yeah.
But that is a odd sort of Venn diagram of
Yeah.
stuff. And then for me, it just sort of speaks. I know we get a lot of great movies now, but there was just something about the 1990s in cinema that had, I don't know, that just had a bit more devil may care about it, you know.
I think it's because
just
the
isn't there.
anxieties of the time were both real and stupid. And you've got this sort of obsession with the apocalypse and Nostradamus and the Millennium Bug that is obviously, it's kind of bubbling under the Day of the Beast. The idea that this big meaningless deadline when all the numbers go from 9 to 0 is going to bring about the end of the world in some way. And that is, on the one hand, a reflection of a very genuine post-Cold War stress where no one really knows what the future's going to bring anymore, and no one knows what kind of power axes the world is based on anymore. And also, it's dumb as shit. I think you can do it nowadays, but it's like the dumbness comes from a different vector. I think the movies that sort of have that vibe now for me are things like Bugonia and One Battle After Another, and to an extent the Ready or Not films, where you have villains who are very, very dangerous and thick. And that, I think in the future we will look back on that and say, oh, that's a mixture of those two ingredients that, you know, feels very Pete Hegseth era. But in the 90s, the anxieties themselves were stupid. That's the difference. Nowadays, all of the anxieties people have are very serious and about very grave matters, but we've somehow elected the dumbest people in the world to deal with them. Whereas in the 90s, you have this very, very strong kind of paranoia and unease in society that keeps bubbling up in ways that are just unbelievably dumb. That's my sociologist bit, at least.
And also, it was an industrial thing as well. I think there's a Frank Zappa quote about music in particular, where he talked about once upon a time there was just, you know, big men with smoking cigars in office that just gave money to anything, no matter how mad it was. And then in the case, like, we're relating that to movies. That's how you get stuff like this. That's how you get the Canadian film board giving money to David Cronenberg to do them things. Okay.
Yeah.
And now you've got people who understand algorithms and are accountants and are all about sort of profit and loss charts. And it's just, the magic has died a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a waning and passing of time. I don't think we're a million miles away from it, because there is, I think, being able to be satirical about very, very harsh times in silly ways is a valuable thing for pop culture to do. Maybe we'll learn, maybe we won't, I don't know. But Aidan, any closing thoughts on Day of the Beast?
I mean, I think just to go back to it, because like I said, this is the second time that I've seen this film, and normally on a rewatch, I don't really tend to pay attention to the plot or the characters this time, because I know how it went in the first viewing. But with the second viewing, I just appreciate the craft of it a lot more on the second watch. Just the settings, how Delegazzi's got the pacing nailed down, how he's got just how it just pops basically with like color and attitude, and like Rob was saying before, this punk rock ethos bubbling under all these different like these issues that and anxieties that, as Graham said, is just completely dumb when you look at it that in that light. Yeah, and I think as a closing thought, I think it's really aged quite appropriately well in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a really great again black comedy that I think's honestly just really damn good.
Yeah, and make it part of your Christmas rotation.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes.
Come on now, yeah. The last one, mutant action mutante, is about a terrorist group. Or at least it starts off as one, a terrorist group who don't really seem to have that much of a point beyond kidnapping people for a lot of money. We're in this sort of weird sci-fi reality that
It's
it,
part mad.
yeah,
I don't. Yeah,
it's Gilliam. It's Gilliam reality. Let's be honest.
yeah,
We're in
yeah.
the future where Gilliam basically became the God King and decided to make the universe in his image.
I know. I noted this down. It is very Brazil somehow.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit where there's sort of an advert at the end towards everything kicking off, and it's like cereal laced with LSD, I think it was, or something like that, or acid. It's like, okay, if you got to cope with this reality, go for it. But yes, there's this terrorist group of Action Mutante. It's called that because there's people with disabilities within their ranks. From memory serves as conjoined twins, which has like the best gag in any of these movies. How that evolves. There's somebody who has a bomb, as the press describes it, a bomb permanently on their chest. And the leader of them, who basically has a horrible scar on his face, and he hides it behind this leather mask. But there's a sequence. There's others as well. There's a giant who doesn't really say much, but he has two massive guns that he uses, and they kidnap somebody, a powerful magnate. I don't know what industry he's in. Her soon to be, or his soon to be daughter-in-law, and demand some ridiculous currency, 100 million of them. I don't know what it was. Let's say Corpex. It feels like it may as well be that.
Why
As
not?
far as anything.
Yeah.
And then it turns its head and becomes a paranoid sort of one man against other piece, sort of slasher like. And then it becomes sort of how would I describe it? Sort of like
It goes a little bit Texas Chainsaw Massacre towards the end, I found.
a little bit Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They're
Yeah,
on
it's
something. Let's just call it Mars. So let's throw in a little bit of what's it called? Total Recall in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just mad. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's a debut somehow.
And it's just one thing. Before we get into it, it's just if this is a debut, oh my word, the production design.
Yeah.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
If you think this is stupid, fair play, but you cannot deny that the production design in this is staggeringly good. The things that are put to life, like spaceships and weird realities, and it doesn't take place in a lot of places. I think there's like 4 or 5 main places, but they really do make them feel like they're really stretching throughout the galaxy.
Yeah. In a strange way, I could have done with fewer places. I think I like the movie a bit more when it's in that, as you say, that kind of Brazil future where it's very dystopian, very grimy. It's like it's the future we had when we thought that the tech dystopia would still involve physical tech rather than it all being digital. That's a really great aesthetic. The stuff on the planet a bit less solo, and this is the other sort of Polish cinema thing that it evoked. It reminded me a bit of On the Silver Globe.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah. which is an extraordinary reference point to come up with anything, because you can't quite believe that there could be anything else that's a bit like On the Silver Globe.
Is that the Zulowski one which he didn't basically finish, and
Yes.
there's all sorts of versions
yes.
out there in the wild?
Yeah, which is just one of the most sort of shock of the new things I've ever seen. You know, I just cannot process On the Silver Globe. I know I love it, but I could not tell you anything about it. But it's that kind of, it's the unreal parts of it, I think. It's the fact that after a film where it's achieved a lot of its effects successfully, suddenly you're on an alien planet that, okay, clearly is just a quarry, and the aliens clearly are people in face paint. But there's a sort of a theatrical conviction to it, a sense that it doesn't matter if it's real or not, so long as it has a certain kind of spectacle that I think is very similar to what Zulowski was doing there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go on, Aidan.
No, I think out of the three, it's the one that I feel the most undecided on, Mutant Action. And like I say, I just don't know whether it's just because, like I say, with the wild swings that he takes, De La Iglesia, that is, with the black comedy elements, with the sci-fi settings, that I just felt a little bit too lost in it in a weird way. And like I say, I think maybe it could change again if I give it another rewatch. But out of the three, it's the one that maybe another run at it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's valid. I mean, there's problems with it. It kind of loses its way when it's on the Mars parallel, basically. But at the same time, it has this weird knowingness.
Yeah.
And that sense of humor that is in so many Iglesias movies. Like the little nods is, oh, this one's got Stockholm Syndrome again. Oh. It has that sarcasm to it, which I think elevates it, as well as sort of it being very, very Gilliam-esque. And honestly, I don't think Terry Gilliam's enough. So if he decided to sort of fashion a Spanish avatar and like sort of pass his soul onto that Spanish avatar, I'm okay with this, honestly, because he's one of the most singular voices in like mid to late 20th century sort of genre filmmaking.
Yeah.
It was his own worst enemy, honestly. But I absolutely loved him nonetheless. And just that sort of was so overriding for me. Sort of Terry Gilliam, Tim Burton, and sort of weirdly, I kept on thinking of RoboCop, but sort of the RoboCop,
same.
which
Oh,
wasn't.
I can see that. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of RoboCop. I know this might upset some people, and that's fine. But I think kind of the sarky satire overwhelms what the rest of the movie is.
Yeah.
And I don't think this one does it too, but I think it's just the world building is of that sort of Demolition Man as well. That sort of weird, comedic, over the top sci-fi that the 90s had so many of, really.
Yeah, it's that kind of
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s kind of cyberpunk where it's making great sport with fake commercials and fake news broadcasts. You can throw in Max Headroom there as well. It all feels like part of a piece.
I can also imagine like a little bit, and this is a comparison point that I didn't think I was going to make until you brought it up, but it does remind me a little bit of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's work as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like City of Lost Children or Delicatessen, like the weird kind of
Not
angles
Amelie.
that.
Amelie.
Yeah,
No, definitely not Amelie. Definitely not
the
Amelie.
Genuette and Caro stuff, which I always feel minded to point out because I do think, given the turn Genuette took, I don't want to be all like, who was your favourite member of the Pixies about this, but we might have to confront the fact that Mark Caro was a more important part of those films than we thought.
Yes. Yeah. Especially post that relationship, what happened to Juno.
Yeah. But that's actually quite an apt point, because the special effects team for this, who do such a great job, mostly came straight off Delicatessen, which at the time was one of the only sort of European films that had that kind of special effects workload that they came straight off that and straight onto this.
Yeah, a Space Truckers is another one, but that's not very good, and that has that same sort of ideology. But it's just the mode of sci-fi as well, which I don't think was really enjoyed for a very long time, where it just didn't feel the need that it had to explain anything.
Yeah.
Mm.
People are more into that now. I think now that like the key influence on a lot of 21st century film science fiction is Children of Men, where most of the exposition is just on like some graffiti in the background. I think has brought that back a bit, thankfully.
Yeah. It also has great. I mean, I do want to allude to that gag. It's the gag about him being a conjoined twin by the shoulders. One of them is killed,
Yeah.
and the other one, to solve the situation of him dragging on a dead body, he does something, and shot by shot, it just looks more and more like a puppet and a toy and a doll,
Yeah.
and it just gets funnier every time it repeats it. At least it did with me. I don't know whether I can speak a sort of a consensus on that.
No, it is very funny, and I think the disability stuff in it is also, like the apocalypse stuff and the theology in Dave the Beast. There is something serious underneath it. These people are kidnapping people who represent body fascism. Exactly, it's basically they target sperm banks, they target gyms, they target aerobics instructors. I can't remember if it was before. Whether it was before or after this, but there was quite a substantial scandal about someone who tried to open a sperm bank where they said only like Nobel laureates would be able to make donations, and he expected people to treat this as a sort of harmlessly wacky thing, and people were like, no, this is eugenics. You're doing eugenics again. And I think a lot of this stuff, unlike the very like delectably 90s stuff in Day of the Beast, a lot of this has only got more relevant over time. You could watch this as a satire on influencer culture and fad diets, and it would still work.
Yeah, well, quite. Another aspect of it is he came out of the oven especially well when it comes to staging scenarios or set pieces.
Yeah.
A particular favourite is, I mean, it's so Star Wars coded, it's unreal. But the shootouts in the bar at the end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And there's
yeah.
like
No, I get
there's
see
like
that.
one shot that I noticed that he had in multiple movies. In this, it's where the bomb goes off and the camera sort of sticks to the stomach of the guy who he hits the wall. And there's another one in Witchin' and Bitchin' where one of the characters is sort of shooed away and he just goes flying through the air. And it's a nice little trick, I thought. I don't know how you describe it. It's sort of a tracking shot with somebody flying through the air.
Yeah.
It's very bold, but just generally that scene at the end, where it almost feels like a bunch of kids playing, but they have guns in that shootout at the bar, the Star Wars coded bar. He's come out of the oven very well as far as staging a set piece. The Iglesia.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for that early on, especially for his debut, I mean, the point that I was going to bring out, the one that stuck in my mind is the segment where they do kidnap the upper management's daughter at the wedding, where the wedding daughter just gets a sharp knife at the cake and then cuts the cake, only to realise that one of the terrorists is hiding inside the cake, so it badly injures him.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's a great and the carnage that erupts following that bit is just like absolutely tremendous because, like I say, he's got the camera worked out like a Swiss watch,
He
basically.
likes his big squibs as well. He doesn't go for like a little insignificant squib. He wants somebody exploding blood everywhere. So
Pedro Almodovar produced this, and I think apparently one of the discussions they had was Almodovar thought he was overdoing the violence a bit, but I have to admit I'm on Del Iglesias' side here. I think the over the top violence is great fun.
Well, it's the whole slapstick, isn't it? Where it becomes so over the top that it's just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Graham, Aidan?
I think it's a hugely confident debut. I am a bit uneasy about the sort of subplot with Patricia, the woman who gets kidnapped, which I think is obviously meant to be exaggerated and outrageous. I don't think it avoids sexism as nimbly as witching and bitching
I
does,
know
but
it doesn't,
Oh yeah, I agree.
especially when it
Yeah.
comes to the Mars segment. That is
yeah.
on thin ice.
Yeah, she does get more scantily or undressed the longer it goes on. I just felt a little bit too uneasy with that,
Well,
personally
it's not just
speaking.
that. It's like the men children that she finds there basically want a woman to be both a whore and a mother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
And then there's the shot when they open the door, which I don't know what the hell they're doing. It's like once like shot of, it's just what are they doing?
It's yeah, it's just like,
Um,
and the woman's tied down to the bed, and it's like, oh no, sorry, mate, that's a bit too, yeah.
But
but
there's lots of
great.
really delightful incidental things here. Rossi De Palma turns up. I'm always delighted when Rossi De Palma's in stuff. I think that's where you can tell Almodovar produced it. He's just like calling his mates round to do cameos.
Yeah.
This is the one that Rob alluded to earlier with the absurdly copyright flouting Mission Impossible needle drops. 2 years
Multiple.
before,
Yeah.
2 years before that film franchise launched as well.
Mm.
Because it was from the TV show.
Yeah.
Because people do forget that Mission Impossible was a TV show before it was Tom Cruise's serial attempt to kill himself. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as some Korean or Chinese movies that I've seen where they just blatantly steal stuff and it's not even
Yeah.
shy about it. But I assume that was cleared because this has a pretty decent release globally. So
You'd have to assume it was pretty well budgeted. I mean, I'm sure it like cost less to make than you would think from looking at it, but it probably had enough to clear that.
yeah, I mean they're my favorite sort of genre movies I should say. It's like Ash that Flying Lotus did.
Yeah.
He did that on a very, very small scale, but it feels massive.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it allows them to be a little bit more wild and madcap. Whereas when you get to like movies of this mode where they have the money and they have to be a bit more checkbook friendly, I guess would be the most diplomatic way of saying it. Whereas this, where again it's like 5 locations, which isn't really that outrageous. One's a quarry. They're doing the classic Doctor Who thing where a quarry is every planet in the universe.
Yeah.
A party scene, a spaceship, which is just sort of industrial space, and a bar at the end.
Yeah, and the dinner sequence where all the miners having like this little grotesque dinner bit as well, which is like clearly like someone's cabin in this quarry somewhere.
Yeah, they get a lot in out of very little, and I just find that very satisfying. Really, and maybe it's the punk ethos, maybe it's the do-it-yourself thing, which just feels more. It's weird that a movie this big feels achievable, but
yeah, I
I
think
find enjoying that.
That's one of the things with these like genre movies that are made on a lower budget than is customary for whatever their genre is. It makes it possible to see the fun they're having in making it.
Yes,
I'm sure these movies are also very hard to make, but there's an element of it where you can imagine the people making these films like playing as kids and doing a lot of what they're doing for real here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of charm to that.
It's that Peter Jackson thing again. He grew up like that because it's easy to remember him for Lord of the Rings, but the movies he did in New Zealand, he was a little weirdo.
He was an odd fellow. Yes.
A mad little weirdo who ate sick. But
Also, his big sort of his more respectable New Zealand movie does still have like a claymation orgy in it. Heavenly Creatures is still an odd film.
yeah. And there's just
From the director, yeah,
that world
from
of
the
things.
director who brought.
Sorry, go on, Aidan.
No, I was just going to butt in with the joke from the director of They Shall Not Grow Old. Yes.
Yeah, but I think that's just something. If I come across as a Philistine, I don't really care. I enjoy these sort of genre movies, make you feel like you could do it too.
Yeah.
Have that sort of energy to them. Because it's one of those things. You watch Jurassic Park, and how could you possibly aspire to make anything when you see something like that? It's like, I can't do that. I don't have access to giant robots.
Yeah.
But you see this sort of like rogue little movie which gets a lot out of very little, and it has these big, lavish ideas. It thinks, yeah, like filmmaking isn't an impossible dream. And I enjoy stuff like that.
It's like the old Aardman maxim that people want to see the thumbprints. I forget which one of theirs it was, but they said there was one where they really worked hard to make the claymation as slick and as perfect and as smooth in its movement as possible. And it sort of turned people off a bit because people like to know that what they're watching has been actually handcrafted.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a movement of that coming back again. All happened from COVID, apparently, because people were just sick of waiting to have their movies financed. So they thought, you know what, I'm going to get 6 of my friends who are going to do literally everything on this thing, and we're going to make these quite ambitious movies. So I'm not the only one who thinks these are kind of great. So
I think it'll be a natural response to having AI shoved down our throats. I think when you look at the sheer ugly gloss of AI, the way that it's managed to make smoothness and perfection look actively offensive, then making something rough-edged is the obvious way that culture's going to swing as a reaction to that.
Yeah, and seeing these, not necessarily forebearers, because they've been doing this sort of thing since, well, forever, really. But yeah, that's just a thing that really came to bear for me through these 3 movies. But before we move on to the director at large, what's our any final thoughts on Action Mutante, Aidan, Graham?
No, I can't really think of anything else that I really want to say about it. I mean, like I say, I think I will give it another chance in the future. But like I said, this rewatch, as much as I do respect the craft of it, as much as I did think there are, some great, especially for a debut, some impressive feats with it. I think there was just too many holes that I fell down with it, unfortunately, and that's just kind of how I stand with it, really. Still, nonetheless, I think if you're gonna sit through any of these films, I definitely think you should at least give it a shot. Because, like I say, you can't really diss it, as Rob said, for a smallish film like this that just does DIY filmmaking, rough edge filmmaking, as punk rock as it does. It's still commendable. So yeah.
Yeah, whether it's Action Mutante or Repo Man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
These things are inspiring. Have you seen any other Álex de Iglesias movies before we talk about the typical things on these episodes?
The only one I'd seen before was Day of the Beast, which we've already covered on this episode. Anything else? No, I hadn't actually. So this was kind of quite a nice, educating experience with the guy, basically. Because like I said, my main mode of Spanish cinema, and everyone, because we all have these different directors that represent this one nationality in a lot of ways. Like I say, if you look at Finland, people are always going to quote like Aki Kaurismäki, and if in Spain, everyone's going to quote Pedro Almodovar. So it's nice to delve into the fellow countrymen and see what else the country has to offer in terms of cinematic heritage.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just see the the figurehead. Like Sweden, you get, I don't know, Roy Anderson and Ingmar Bergman, and who knows what else they do. Maybe not Roy Anderson, actually. That's just one of my weird quirks. I love the guy. Ingmar Bergman. But yeah, 100%. Graham, any other De La Iglesia?
I'd never seen any others. Like Aiden, The Day of the Beast was the only one that I'd seen previously. Although I sort of have an odd history of almost seeing his stuff. I've got a loose commitment with a co-host to do a pop screen episode on Perdita Durango, which I'd wanted to see for ages because it's based on a Barry Gifford novel. It's followed to Wild at Heart. I'm a huge David Lynch fan. It's got Alex Cox in it. I'm a huge Alex Cox fan. Somehow never managed to get around to that. I also have a weird history with the Oxford murders because it was out in Spanish cinemas when I went to Spain. And I just found it so odd that I don't get to go abroad very often. It's very sad to me, but on one of the few occasions where I did, I always thought it was really funny that the local cinemas had this film that sounded like the most English thing you could ever possibly see in there. But yeah, that's about it.
I mean, I as far as I recall, I've seen one more. It was his Western, 800 Bullets, I think it was called.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that, which is about the sort of the studio movies that were made in Spain, because that's where a lot of those things were made in the classic era. I don't know my Western knowledge, so I'm really exposing myself here.
Well, yeah, no, you're right. It is where a lot of what we call the Italian westerns, the spaghetti westerns, were actually shot in Almira and other locations around in Spain, because
this is very true.
it's one of the few places in Europe that really has the landscapes for it.
Yeah, and it plays into that. And as far as I remember, it's not quite as manic as these three. But honestly, I don't think these are sort of hugely representative, because he has different modes. This is just very representative of his Gonzo mode, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful mode that he has.
Okay.
But yeah, he's also done like much more. I think, as far as I understand it, the Oxford's Murders is a bit more classical.
Yeah, it's a bit more
like
sort of done it. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so he has these different modes that he sort of flips between.
I think the outlier in his filmography that I would really quite like to see is The Bar.
Oh yes, I have also seen that. Yes, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's just like, because it's like I say, it's just like, again, like, well, maybe not less so in case of Richard, but just the synopsis of it, with it being set. Is it just entirely set in a bar? Because I'm assuming like Dumb Logic. Yeah. So yeah, basically a one location movie, is it? Or if that is the case, I would...
essentially, yeah. It's basically, if you don't know that one, it's a bunch of people are in a bar when suddenly they're not allowed to leave because there's like a big military presence out the front of it, and it kind of escalates. Not quite to the extent of having the monster from the end of Witchin' and Bitchin', but it escalates, and it's a really neat sort of contained thriller, which shows that he can be sort of mainstream accessible with his mode of storytelling, which is a pity that one's not really picked up, because I enjoyed that a great deal, even though I forgot I'd seen it. Yeah, who can remember everything we've seen, even with Letterboxd? Which makes asking sort of for legacy really hard, but for people who are completely new to the director. But so how can I really pivot here? Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, apparently he basically runs the Spanish film industry, so he's probably all right from that perspective. But it's interesting. I think with the films that we've seen here, I think his work gets stronger the more there's a kind of cultural context that supports it. Mutant Action and Day of the Beast are obviously picking up on things that were very still subcultural, but very strong in like 90s politics and 90s culture. And maybe as the 21st century started, maybe some of his career wobbles were just that that time had ended and he didn't have a context where his style of filmmaking made sense anymore. But I have faith that as the world continues to get worse, his work will become more relevant. I think the more this place really sucks, the more we need Álex de la Iglesia to make sense of it.
Yes.
I mean, that sentiment is true of so many of that era, though, wasn't it? Like a lot of 70s and 80s directors were just absolute 90s directors. I should go as far to say were absolutely brilliant, but then they just couldn't find any work. Which you get
Yeah.
stories like Ken Russell making movies in his back garden in his shed, just to
Alexander
keep on.
Rockwell, didn't he have to like remortgage his house or something to fund his last film? Yeah.
It's just it became this point. Maybe it was that Zappa quote that I was talking about, but where these wild directors just weren't getting the chances, so they had to be a bit more conservative in the stuff that they were producing. Or
Yes.
if you're John Carpenter, just give him the middle finger and go and become a musician.
Yeah.
It's very true. Yeah.
And all the power to him. But yeah, he was quite a misanthrope, that one. But yeah, I think that's really all you can say. I mean, I'm not an expert on him by any means, but for me, it kind of gives me not necessarily hope, but it gives me a hunger to want to go and see what other sides of Spanish cinema there are. Because
Yeah.
there's so many
Yeah.
movements. Like Australian cinema is exactly the same. We get this very curated version of what that actually is. So stuff which Spanish, I mean, Czech cinema is exactly the same. Second Run are doing a great job, but they can't do it everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's these countries where you get a very curated image, and you don't really see beyond that curated image. Directors like this guy has made me think, you know what, Spain probably has a lot that we don't know about. I would like to see. I don't know what it is, but I'd like to see what they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were going to pick up on that. Okay.
Well,
don't
no,
let
I
me.
suppose
the
the classic example of it. I'm not an expert on Spanish cinema, but I mean the classic example of this is France, where the French films that get distributed in the UK get distributed because they fit our image of what French cinema is about, which is very, very serious art house stuff. And then you look at the actual French box office charts, and like number one's a comedy where the farmer keeps farting and falling over or something, and it really they're not quite as we imagine them to be.
They love Mr. Bean.
They do, yes.
They do, yes. Yeah, they're not exactly all Francois Truffaut or Jean-Luc Godard all the time, are they? Yeah.
No. So I think that wraps us up. Aidan, where can we find you and the stuff you do online, even though you're probably NDA'd up the wazoo?
Well, at the minute, like I say, I'm not up to much at the minute. The film and TV land has been very, very quiet this year, which is unfortunately just the nature of the industry. Sometimes, it can be very quiet, and then all of a sudden, it'll just come in like a bus, basically, and I have like 5 different things to pick from, and I get overwhelmed. So, but apart from that, you can find me on Letterboxd under the username AidenF. I'm at bsky.social, at locations Aiden, and those are the 2 main places that you can find me. Most up-to-date site is probably my Letterboxd, and that's about it. Other than that, you can find me basically here on the Geek Show Podcast Network, on the Uncut Network, or Pop Screen from time to time.
Yes.
Hello.
And Graham, yourself?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the next step in terms of films and exhibitions is at the time of recording, but once I do know, it'll go up on my site, grahamwilliamsonfilms.com. Other than that, also on Letterboxd, search for Graham Williamson. I'm on Instagram at GrahamWFilms. And I am also the host of Pop Screen, which Aiden mentioned, the podcast in which Geek Show staffers look at pop stars in the movies. We've just recorded an episode that I think will either be going out or when is this going out, Rob? Do we have a date?
Don't know yet. Soon.
Okay.
It'll be going out in the next month, though. I can say that comfortably.
Right. Yeah, I'll button my lip as to what we're doing, but I've recently recorded episodes on Ken Russell's Listomania. The Pharrell Williams is a Lego man for some reason film Piece by Piece. One that we will have put out by the time this comes out, because it's the next one up, is Mother Mary, the new David Lowery film with a extremely memorable FKA Twigs cameo. So yeah, it's that sort of thing that we discuss. If that sounds interesting, check us out. I've also just launched a new podcast on the Geek Show Patreon with my good colleague Matt Cunliffe, in which we take an irreverent look at art and literature, the measure of which can probably be taken by the fact that the podcast is called The Arts Hole.
It's art, by the way, before you get
Yeah.
any cover ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's at www.patreon.com/The Geek Show, where I'm also a regular contributor to Outside the Blue Box and Last Night.
On the Patreon thing, I've launched a new podcast too, which I never remember the name of, but They'll Love Me When I'm Dead. It's I'm dead, Lyle dead, you're dead, whatever. It's They'll Love Me When That Happens, and that's about franchises, and I do that with Andy. Done the first one, which was on Blade, and the one which we've got coming up with a guest, which we're going to try and do, but it's probably going to be a rod to break me back with, trying to get guests for everything. But the second one is going to be on Universal Soldier, which will be a new for me thing.
Okay.
And I'll be outflanked by two Scottish people, so yeah. Damn them. Also, you can find me online in Uncut Robcast. That's on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And I think that's about it, really, for this episode. So coming up, we have a second version of the Joe Dante recording coming up, which has given me an opportunity to talk about Erie, Indiana, because that was a very pivotal thing for me as a kid, and probably explains why I am who I am, as well as Gremlins 2. But come on, it's Gremlins 2.
It's Gremlins 2. Yes.
It's Gremlins.
It became a thing because Jordan Peele turned up one day at the office and just said, it's in there. And bang. But yes, until then, thank you very, very much for listening, and please do subscribe and check out some of our other stuff, including Pop Screen and, well, all sorts of other things. But until then, see you in the next one.